After my divorce, I moved back in with my parents. Everything seemed fine until one night, my daughter whispered, "Someone's watching me in the dark." I smiled and brushed it off. But 3 weeks later, I discovered a hidden camera in her room, along with my father's voice on the recording. I never thought I'd come back here. My old room, still painted a faded pink, with smudged fingerprints from when I was a teenager, the single bed pushed up against the wall, and that old wooden wardrobe my father built with his own hands. Everything felt frozen in memory, except me, carrying a fraying suitcase and a 7-year-old daughter whose eyes looked far too big for her face. After the divorce and losing my job, I didn't have many choices. My mom said, "Come home. Home is always home." I wanted to believe her. I really did. The first few days passed in that kind of uneasy quiet you almost mistake for peace. Dinner was warm. There was stew, soup, questions from my mother. "Are you okay? Do you need anything?" My father barely spoke, still buried in his paper, tapping his spoon lightly on the mug whenever he was thinking. Lily sat across from me, giggling as she told stories from school, swinging her legs under the table, showing off the new dress my mom had just sewn for her. "She looks like a little angel," my mom said with a proud smile. But something felt off. I couldn't name it. Just a weight, like a quiet ticking underneath a dream, subtle but growing. That night, after the lights were off, blankets pulled up, and I was drifting in the room next to hers, Lily tugged at my sleeve. Her voice was barely a whisper, like she was afraid of breaking something in the air. "Mom, do Grandma and Grandpa not like me?" I opened my eyes. "Why would you say that?" I heard laughing in my room at night, but I was asleep. Maybe I was dreaming. I sat up and brushed her hair back. "Probably just a dream, Lily. Nothing's there, okay? Grandma just made you a dress, remember?" She nodded, but her eyes didn't blink. "I feel like someone's watching me." I smiled gently and tucked her back in. I don't know why I didn't ask more questions. Maybe I was tired. Maybe I didn't want to stir a fear I thought I'd buried. That was the first mistake. And from that moment on, I started to understand silence doesn't always mean safety. Sometimes it's something else. A signal. A warning. A door wide open, letting the dark slip into a child's sleep. I didn't pay attention at first. I told myself it was just a child's imagination, adjusting to a new environment. But within a few days, the little things started repeating. And I realized something in her was changing. Lily, the same child who used to skip barefoot out of the bathroom, hugging her cat-print pajamas, laughing like wind chimes, now stood silent at the bedroom doorway. "Mom, can I change in your room instead?" I looked up from a stack of papers. "Why, sweetie? Your room's just fine." She didn't answer, just lowered her gaze and gripped the hem of her shirt like she was bracing for a no. A few nights later, she insisted we close the curtains tightly, though she used to love stargazing from that little window. "I don't like the moonlight on my face," she said. But her hands were trembling when she pulled the curtain shut. And then came that night. I woke up to the softest sound, like a quiet sob threading the air. Lily was crouched at the foot of my bed, hugging her knees, shaking. "Did you have a nightmare?" I asked. She shook her head. Tears streamed silently. "It's not a nightmare. I couldn't sleep. I felt like someone was watching me." I pulled her into my arms and rubbed her back. Her heartbeat was fast and uneven. I said the usual things. "No one's watching you. I'm here. Everything's okay?" But something in her eyes sent a chill down my spine. It wasn't ordinary fear. It was awareness, like she was living inside a nightmare I couldn't see. The next morning, after dropping Lily off at school, the unease settled in my chest like a stone. I remembered something. Lily's room still had an old baby monitor, tucked behind the dresser, still plugged in, connected to an app on my phone. I hadn't opened the app in months, but that morning I did. The screen flickered to life. Blurry image, low resolution, but clear enough. Her little bed, the bunny pillow, the wooden wardrobe. I scrubbed back through the footage. Nothing strange in the first few hours of the night. But at exactly 2:37 a.m., something shifted in the corner of the frame. Not Lily. She was still sleeping, curled up, clutching her stuffed toy. It was something else, just a faint flicker, like a brief glint of movement, then gone. I thought my eyes were playing tricks. I rewound it. 3 times. Same spot. Same glint. A cold ripple crept down my spine. I didn't know what I was looking at. But for the first time, sitting there alone, staring at a dim little screen, I knew something was wrong in this house. And it was watching my daughter at night. I don't know what made me act that morning. Maybe it was the empty look in Lily's eyes the night before. Maybe it was the unplaceable sound from that dim baby monitor screen. Maybe I'd just ignored too many things in the past, and this time, I couldn't afford to. My mom took Lily to the supermarket. I waited until they were out of the house, then got up. The air felt strange, like the pause before a thunderstorm. Everything was so still I could hear the kitchen clock ticking from down the hall. I walked into Lily's room. Nothing had changed. Her pillow was neatly arranged. Her stuffed animals lined up. Curtains drawn tight. A perfectly normal room, the kind strangers would glance at and say, "Looks cozy." But I'd lived long enough to know, the most dangerous rooms aren't the messy ones. They're the ones that are too clean to be innocent. I dropped to my knees, inspecting the baseboards. Then I stepped back and looked at the full wall. My eyes landed on one spot, the wall across from Lily's bed. Something wasn't symmetrical. I pulled the little bookshelf away, every muscle in my body bracing. Behind it, embedded into the drywall, I saw a small, round hole about the size of a pencil tip. I tilted my head. Inside, something blinked, a soft green light. I held my breath and reached in. My fingers touched metal. Not a socket. Not a safety device. A camera. Tiny. Wireless. Wedged in so tightly, it disappeared into the frame. I sat back, hard. My whole body went cold. I didn't move right away. Part of me wanted to scream. Part of me just felt hollow. I had let my daughter sleep in a room that was being watched. I had brushed her hair, kissed her forehead, and said, "There's nothing there." My hands were shaking as I removed the camera, gently, as if yanking it too hard might cause the house to explode. I didn't know if I was sweating or crying. I carried the device, cold and heartless, downstairs to the kitchen, where my mom was unpacking eggs. I set it down on the wooden table. "What's this?" She turned, stiffening when she saw it. "Clara, a camera," I said. "In Lily's room, hidden behind her bookshelf." She opened her mouth, but no words came. "Did you know about it?" No. I didn't wait to hear the rest. I saw the way she looked away, the way her chin trembled. I left the kitchen, walked straight out to the car. I sat in the driver's seat, closed the door, turned on the AC even though it wasn't hot. I pulled out my old laptop from the trunk. The camera had a micro SD card, tucked in tight. I removed it with shaky fingers and slid it into the laptop. A folder appeared. 92 video files. All dated. All labeled by night. All watching what? My hand hovered over the touchpad. I paused. Part of me didn't want to know. But I had already crossed the line where not knowing was safe. I clicked on the first video. And I began to watch. The screen flickered for a few seconds before stabilizing. I was sitting in the car, laptop on my lap, air conditioner humming softly, but my shirt clung to my back with sweat. The first clip, Lily in her light blue dress, lining up her stuffed animals on the bed. She had no idea she was being recorded. Of course not. A chill ran down my spine, sharp as a cold wire. Not because of the image, but because of who was watching it.
Me.
Her mother. Sitting here, staring into her private world, through a lens someone else had hidden. And I wasn't the one who put that camera there. I clicked on the second file. Lily came into the room after school, backpack still on. She sat down, peeled off her socks, scratched her leg, then began to take off her shirt. My throat locked. My chest tightened like a fist. I reached out to shut the screen. But I didn't. Some part of me needed to see this nightmare.
To look it in the eye.
To stop pretending there was a safer version of the truth. The next clip was at night. The fox-shaped night light cast a soft amber glow. Lily slept on her side, arms curled around her worn-out bunny. Everything was still, until the sound came. A whisper. Quiet.
Close.
Like someone leaning right up to the mic. She really does look like her mother used to. I froze. Like a hunted animal in the exact moment the trap snaps. For one heartbeat, nothing moved. Then came the rush, the heat in my ears, the pounding in my chest. I knew that voice. That calm, low tone. The one that used to say, "Don't overreact, Clara. You're too sensitive." The voice I'd grown up with. My father's voice. I slammed the pause button. The screen froze, Lily mid-sleep, unaware, peaceful, being watched from behind a wall. I threw open the car door. Air rushed in, cold and sharp. I closed the laptop, held it against my chest like a shield. My hands were shaking so hard they buzzed. And suddenly, I had a question I never wanted to ask. When I was Lily's age, was there a camera in my room too? And worse, I knew the answer. In that moment, memory turned on me. The nights I woke to the sound of the door creaking shut. My father standing in the hall, saying he was just checking if I was asleep. The tiny hole in the wall I'd been told was from an old nail. All of it came crashing back. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just sat there hollowed out, like someone had vacuumed the child out of me. And the worst part? I had brought my daughter right back into the house I once ran from. I didn't need to see another video. I knew. I knew who had done this. The man I once called Dad hadn't just betrayed me. He was repeating it with my daughter. I sat up straight, wiped my face, took a breath. The nausea was still there, but the cold had turned into something else.
Rage.
In that moment, I wasn't thinking about justice. I wasn't even thinking about revenge. I was thinking about one thing only. We had to leave.
Now.
Before this darkness swallowed the only thing I had left to protect. I didn't confront him. I didn't scream. I was far too exhausted for that. Instead, I drove to school. Picked Lily up earlier than usual. When she walked out of her classroom, her hair messy, backpack slung low, she ran toward me and wrapped her arms around my legs like she already sensed something was wrong. I knelt, kissed her forehead. "We're going home to pack, okay?" She didn't ask why. She just nodded. On the drive back, I said nothing. Just listened to the hum of the air vent, the tires on the road, and the heavy, pounding silence inside my chest. When we stepped into the house, Mom was slicing apples in the kitchen. My father, that man, sat calmly reading the newspaper, as if everything was normal. I went straight to the bedroom. Each step echoed in my bones. I opened the closet, pulled the suitcase from under the bed. The zipper felt louder than thunder. Lily stood at the door, saying nothing, just watching. Like she already knew, we weren't coming back. When I wheeled the suitcase into the hallway, he stood from his chair. "Where are you going?"
His voice was calm.
Gentle, like I was heading out to buy groceries. I looked at him, really looked, and didn't see my father. I saw a stranger. A man who once placed a hand on my fevered forehead, who once told bedtime stories beside my crib. Now, a mask pulled away. "Where are you going?" he repeated. I didn't answer. He sighed, like I was being unreasonable. And then he said it. "I was just watching out for her. Like I used to watch over you." I laughed. Not from humor, but from disgust, so deep it couldn't come out any other way. "No," I said. My voice was paper scraping against fire. That wasn't protection. That was control. That was invasion. That was a crime. He didn't flinch. No shame. No apology. Just a simple breath. "Your mother knew." She didn't say anything. I turned to her. She was still at the counter, knife in hand, apple now broken mid-slice.
She didn't look at me. Didn't speak.
Just bowed her head, like the weight of the years was crushing her from above. I stepped closer. "You knew?" I asked. She didn't answer.
She didn't need to.
Her silence was louder than a scream. It told me she had known. It told me she had chosen to stay silent. "I trusted you," I whispered. "I brought Lily here because I thought at least you'd protect her. But you said nothing. just like before. I stared at her. One last time. Then I turned to him. He stood tall, unapologetic. There was a hollow in his eyes, like truth no longer mattered. "The last time you looked at Lily," I said, gripping my daughter's hand. "You thought she didn't know, but she did. And she told me. That's all I needed to know. I'm her mother, and I will not let history repeat itself." I walked to the door, suitcase in tow. The house behind me wasn't a home anymore. It was a shell, cracking open to reveal rot. And for the first time in years, I didn't feel sorrow. Just one word pulsing through my head, bright as blood on snow.
Done.
We left just past midnight. I didn't leave a note.
Didn't say goodbye.
I simply locked the door gently. The suitcase wheels creaked down the front steps. Lily squeezed my hand tighter as we passed through the gate. No one saw us off. No one tried to stop us. That house, the one where I learned to walk, to speak, the one I used to dream about getting married from. Now it was just a structure of wood and brick full of warped memories. A mask too thick, finally fallen off. I drove through the night. The road was empty. Lily fell asleep in the back seat, curled up with her torn bunny, like she was clinging to something that still felt whole. I called Jessie at a red light. Her voice came through groggy but familiar. "Clara? I'm sorry for calling so late. I need a place to stay. Just for a few days. Something big happened."
"Come," she said.
"Whenever. Just come." That was Jessie. The same girl who once found me sobbing in our sophomore dorm room and didn't try to fix.
It
just handed me tea and sat quietly beside me. When we arrived, the porch light was on. Jessie stood there in a thin sweater, holding a blanket. "Is Lily asleep?" I nodded. Jessie opened the door. "Couch is made up. Shower. Sleep. We'll talk tomorrow." I only managed, "Thank you." She looked at me, her eyes reading everything I couldn't say. "You don't have to thank me for walking away from a place that was supposed to protect you." And somehow that sentence broke me. The next day, I called a lawyer. I told them everything. I sent the video. The person handling the case went quiet for a long moment, then said, "We'll walk you through every step." I also called a child psychologist. Not for me. For Lily. I didn't know exactly what she had seen, what she had sensed. But I knew this. Silence had lasted for too many generations. If I didn't do something, it would happen again. The cycle had to end with me. I watched Lily at the kitchen table, coloring with her crayons. She was drawing a giant sun next to a little house. I asked softly, "Is this our house?" Lily nodded. "New house. This one doesn't have scary sounds at night." I pulled her into my arms, feeling, for the first time, a bit of lightness returned to my chest. And I realized, home isn't where you were born. It's where you finally feel safe enough to begin again. The first call came on a Monday morning. "We need to inspect the whole house," the officer said. Not just Lily's room. I understood immediately. They weren't just checking for a single incident. They were looking for a pattern, one that might have started long before Lily was born.
I sent them the address.
And then I waited. Meanwhile, I lived in two realities. One where Lily was finally sleeping through the night, painting happy suns and baking cookies with Jessie. And another, full of fragmented memories stitching themselves together. The way I always kept the bathroom door slightly ajar as a teen. The nights I'd wake with a shiver, swearing I heard breathing too close. The creeping sense of being watched, dismissed for years as sensitive or imaginative. Maybe. I had never imagined it. When they called back, I braced myself. But nothing could have prepared me. "We found 3 more hidden devices," the investigator said. One behind a bathroom cabinet. One embedded behind an old picture frame in the storage room. And one in my old bedroom. My heart clenched so tightly I thought I might throw up. "One of them was still functioning," he continued. "It contains recordings from at least 15 years ago." I barely breathed. But in my mind, only one thought echoed. Silence ends here. The story broke that Friday. Local headlines read, Retired man under investigation for surveillance and illegal recording within family home. Victims include daughter and young granddaughter. I stared at his name in print. No longer dad. Just a suspect. My mother, too, was being investigated for complicity. For knowing. For staying silent. The neighborhood was stunned. Reporters stood outside the old house. Neighbors whispered, pointed up at the second floor. Someone I hadn't spoken to in years texted me. Clara, is it true? I didn't reply. I didn't need anyone to validate my pain. An aunt called, voice trembling with outrage. You aired our dirty laundry for the whole world. Do you know what this does to the family name? I listened, then calmly said, family is supposed to be where you're safe, not where secrets fester. She hung up. A cousin posted on Facebook. Nowadays, people will betray blood just for a moment in the spotlight. I read it, but instead of anger, I felt peace. Because I finally understood. Silence never protected anyone. It only feeds what's rotten. That afternoon, I stepped out onto Jesse's porch. The sun was soft. The wind calm. A reporter stood outside the fence, camera raised. I didn't flinch. I didn't hide. I looked straight into the lens. And for the first time in my life, I felt free. Not because I had won. Not because justice had arrived. But because I had finally done something. For the little girl I used to be. And for my daughter. If the truth makes someone feel shame, the fault isn't with the one who spoke it. It's with the one who caused it in the first place. A year passed. Things didn't go back to normal, because normal had been a lie all along. But something else took root.
Peace.
Not loud. Not triumphant. Just quiet mornings with the smell of toast. Sunlight spilling through the second-floor window. Landing gently on Lily's drawings taped to our living room wall. Our apartment was small. 2 bedrooms, a tidy kitchen, a balcony where mint and pansies grew wild in clay pots. Lily was 8 now. She slept through the night. Ate her meals. She laughed. One afternoon in the grocery store, she hugged me out of nowhere, whispering, I like it here. It feels safe. I turned my face away quickly, afraid she'd see the tears in my
eyes.
Because that sentence meant everything. I now work for a nonprofit that supports abuse survivors. I write case summaries. I lead group circles. Sometimes, I just sit beside a trembling woman and hold her hand until she begins to believe she deserves to live. On some days, Jessie picks up Lily from school when I work late. She's still Jessie. Honest, warm, unshakably loyal. I'm proud of you, she told me once, as I stepped out of a long therapy session.
I didn't know what to say, so I squeezed her hand.
Some things don't need words. Some friendships are bigger than definitions. One afternoon in March, I got a letter. Handwritten. Slanted. Familiar. It was from my mother. I sat in the car for a long time, just holding the envelope. My hands didn't shake, but my heart did. Finally, I opened it. Just a few lines.
I'm sorry.
I know I was wrong, but I was scared too. I think of you and Lily every day. I folded the letter and tucked it in a drawer. I didn't cry. I didn't rage. I didn't respond. Because I no longer needed her apology. Not anymore. What I needed, I had already claimed for myself. The truth. No more sidelong glances. No more whispered excuses. No more silence disguised as sacrifice. And from that truth, I had built something new.
Peace.
Not the naive kind I used to dream of, but the kind forged in fire. The kind you stand on, even with cracks under your feet. Forgiveness? Maybe. One day. But not because they deserve it. Only because I want to live lighter. Not today. Today, I just need this. That silence no longer frightens me. If this story moved you, hit subscribe to hear more truths that were once buried. And if you've ever been through something similar, leave a comment. Silence should never be the only way to survive.